is Maggie Zoiss, and I got involved with paranormal investigations after seeing another group on TV back in 2000, 2001. I didn't even realize that people did that. I was always interested in reading ghost books when I was younger, and so then I just looked them up online and found out where they were meeting and joined from there.
When did you start doing it more seriously, I guess?
Well, a couple years after we first...
Okay. So what was the prep like going into a place like Central State, which is very large and has a long history, and has also been abandoned before? Well, most of the site's been abandoned for quite some time now.
Yes, Central State has been abandoned since the early 1990s, and so we knew the power plant was one of the older buildings, and so that was definitely one of the places that we wanted to investigate. And also the tunnels underground that connected all the buildings started from there, and so that was one of the focuses of the investigations. And then also the admin building, it's one of the more iconic buildings. When people see Central State, they see that building.
You know, what did you see? What was it like? I mean, as you said, it had been abandoned for about 20 years at that point. And you're, I think, in the power plant and the tunnels and things like that. I imagine, even without any suspicion of paranormal activity, that would have been fairly eerie. So I guess just kind of senses, sights, and smells, and just take us through that experience.
Okay, well, we began our investigation in the admin building, and we set up a base camp there in one of the rooms on the second floor. And it was hot, it was in the summertime, and so we were actually trying to figure out how to open the windows. And one of our first experiences there, before we even formally started the investigation, was trying to get these windows open, and all of a sudden 3 of us heard a voice say, "Pull down from the top." Now 2 of us heard a woman, and 1 of us heard a man. And I asked everybody in the room who said that, who knew how to get the windows open, because it was one of those you pull down from the top and it comes up on the bottom. I'd never seen a window like that. We just thought they might have been nailed shut. Everybody said they didn't know how to open the windows. They didn't say anything. And we were running a voice recorder at the time, and it didn't pick up this voice. But we knew that 3 of us heard it. So that was one of the crazier experiences that I've had in all my investigations. Then just walking around the buildings, there was a lot of, the paint peeling off the walls, there was water damage, there were plants growing inside the buildings. That makes for a spooky experience. At one point, we each took turns being closed in a room that had iron bars on the door. I didn't have a lot of personal experiences like that. Other than the voice, most of what we experienced was heard later on voice recordings or on our video recordings. One of the things that we captured actually in the admin building was a shadow moving into a doorway, which made it onto the documentary. And then, let's see, the power plant was another experience. It's full of junk, just stuff all over the place. And they also said there was chemicals down in the basement area, so we didn't spend too much time down there. But it was just kind of interesting because I knew that back when it was first built, it was kind of self-sufficient. They had a farm on the property, and they had cows and animals and all kinds of things. So you could still see remnants of that in some of the rooms. Then just, even throughout all the buildings, we saw patient records, there was furniture, almost like it seems a lot what they do in hospitals when they abandon them. They just leave everything there. So you could even kind of get an idea of its history just from looking through all the stuff that was left behind, which is also quite eerie to see, a wheelchair in a corner or a bed with no mattress, any kind of medical equipment. Let's see, the tunnels were mostly filled with pipes, and they were wet and drippy, and we did actually catch an EVP down there on our video recorder, and it was kind of like an old cackling woman. So that was kind of creepy, but also something you might expect at a hospital for people that were suffering from mental illness. Then there was also the possible expectation of being touched, or I think one of the stories that we heard about the location was that a man was strangled as he was sleeping in one of those areas near the power plant, but that fortunately didn't happen to any of us there.
You mentioned to me earlier that you heard a name while you were at Central State, and that name has since come to play a pretty important part of your family's life. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. While we were investigating the dining hall at Central State, we were standing around kind of just talking to each other, and of course we didn't hear it at the time, but we captured an EVP that said the name Adam, and it actually sounded like a little kid's voice first, say Adam, and then it was repeated again by what sounded like a much older voice and kind of a whisper. And then at the time I was pregnant, and we ended up using the name Adam for our firstborn son. I'm not sure what all that meant. That we did have a woman there that was a shaman, and she thought that it was a good idea. So I'm not sure if it was something that was foretelling what we would name our son, or just gave us the idea, but it was kind of an interesting aspect to our time there.
When did you start doing it more seriously, I guess?
Well, a couple years after we first started the group. Okay, so this is the EVP that we captured in the dining hall. We heard a little child's voice say Adam, and then very quietly I said, "What is his name?" after we heard the voice. And then a few seconds later, we hear another whispered voice say Adam. The most memorable experience that we've had on a paranormal investigation was probably down in southern Indiana. It was a family that was being terrorized by this entity that they believed at the time was a son that had recently passed away, but we now believe that it was something demonic. It would wake them in the middle of the night with screams in their ear. It would actually throw things around their house, and it pulled a vanity away from the wall in their bathroom. We were down there investigating, and my husband and another investigator heard this voice come out of midair, and they would converse with it like it was another person in the room. It was just like nothing we ever experienced.